Family excluded me from my sister's wedding, so I escaped to Iceland and watched her big day fall. It started with a text message. "Hey, just a heads up. We're keeping the wedding small. No hard feelings." That was it. No phone call, no invitation, not even a proper explanation. My younger sister, Ava, the same one who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares, who cried on my shoulder during her first heartbreak, had decided I wasn't worthy of standing at her side on the biggest day of her life. And the worst part? My parents agreed. "It's her day," my mother said. "She's making the choices that feel right to her." Right. Choices that conveniently excluded her only sibling. I spent the first few days crying in silence, trying not to let the weight of rejection smother me. But then something shifted. Anger boiled beneath the grief. I realized I didn't want to be anywhere near that wedding. I needed space, not just from my family, but from the version of myself that always waited for their approval. So I booked a one-way ticket to Iceland. The plane touched down in Keflavik on a gray, windy morning. I stepped outside, wrapped in layers, feeling the chill bite at my cheeks like a rude wake-up call. It was perfect. Iceland wasn't about escape. It was about transformation. I rented a small cabin near Vik, where black sand beaches stretched endlessly and the crashing waves roared like defiance. The sky was moody, the cliffs jagged, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I filled my days hiking. Glaciers, soaking in geothermal pools, and drinking strong coffee in quiet cafes where no one knew my name. There was no drama, no phone buzzing with guilt trips or fake apologies. Just me and the wild, raw beauty of Iceland. The day of the wedding came. I knew it would. The date had been burned into my mind ever since Ava first announced it. June 8th. She chose it for the symbolism, the beginning of summer, the light that never fades. That morning, I woke up in my cabin and made coffee, not out of habit, but intention. I wrapped myself in a wool blanket and sat outside, watching the fog roll over the moss-covered hills. The air was crisp and clean, untouched by the falseness I left behind. Then my phone buzzed. Not with a text, with a headline. "Disaster at Mountain View Estate. Wedding party evacuated after tent collapse and sudden storm." I blinked. The venue. That was Ava's. I clicked the link. According to the article, a freak thunderstorm, completely out of season, had swept through the area just as guests gathered for the outdoor ceremony. The tent collapsed, tables overturned, one of the catering trucks skidded into a ditch. No injuries, but the event had been declared a total loss. I stared at the screen, torn between disbelief and something darker, something like vindication. I knew I should feel sympathy, relief that no one was hurt, but I couldn't stop the chill that crept up my spine. Nature had done what I never could, interrupted their picture-perfect story. Later that day, I got a voicemail from my cousin Leah. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her voice hushed like she was sharing state secrets. It was chaos. People were screaming. Ava's dress got ruined. Your mom fainted. They had to move everything to the lobby of a hotel an hour away. Honestly, it felt cursed. Cursed. The word echoed in my head. I hadn't wished for disaster. But I also hadn't stopped the small, cruel smile that curved my lips as I watched the storm swirl on live footage. Maybe that made me a bad person. Or maybe it just made me human. Over the next few days, I didn't hear from my parents. Not a single word, no follow-up, no attempt at reconciliation. They were too busy managing the aftermath, too wrapped up in Ava's ruined fairy tale to even wonder where I was. That hurt more than I cared to admit. But in that silence, I found clarity. The truth was, I had spent years trying to prove I was enough. Good enough to be included, to be trusted, to be loved without conditions. But in their eyes, Ava had always been the golden one, the obedient daughter, the showpiece. Me? I asked too many questions. I didn't play along. And yet, I had always shown up. For birthdays, for holidays, for Ava's heartbreaks and triumphs. I gave and gave, until I had nothing left but the ache of being unseen. I didn't realize how deep that wound was until I watched it scab over in the Icelandic wind. A week after the wedding, I hiked to the top of Skogafoss. The waterfall thundered below, mist kissing my face. I sat on a rock, watching the water crash down like judgment, or cleansing. I pulled out my phone. There were texts from Ava. "Can we talk? I didn't mean to hurt you. Please call me." I stared at the screen for a long time. I wanted to scream, to unload years of pain, to ask her why I wasn't good enough, why she never fought for me, why she let our bond rot just to have a cleaner wedding photo. But instead, I turned off my phone. Some stories don't need a reply. I returned to the cabin and made tea. Outside, the sun hovered low, never fully setting, casting the world in a dreamlike glow. Iceland had that effect. An eternal twilight where reality felt softened, stretched thin. In that light, I saw myself clearly, not as the rejected sister, not as the bitter daughter, but as a person worthy of peace, of space, of love that didn't come with conditions. The storm that ruined Ava's wedding had nothing to do with me. It wasn't karma or justice. It was just weather. Unpredictable, wild, and unbothered by human plans. But it taught me something. You can build your whole life trying to fit into someone else's version of perfection and still be left out in the cold. Or you can choose your own path, even if it means walking away from everything familiar. I chose Iceland. I chose me. 2 months later, I got a letter from my dad. Not an email, a handwritten letter. He apologized, not just for the wedding, but for years of distance. He said he hadn't realized how much they leaned on the idea of Ava being the easier child. He said they missed me. It wasn't enough to undo the damage, but it was something. I haven't decided whether I'll write back. For now, I'm planning my next trip. Maybe the Faroe Islands, maybe Norway, somewhere with cliffs and cold air and silence. Somewhere that reminds me I exist outside of anyone else's story. Somewhere I can keep doing what I've started, rebuilding from the wreckage, not bitter, but bold. Because when your family excludes you from a celebration, it feels like a wound. But sometimes, from that pain, comes clarity. Sometimes, what looks like rejection is really redirection, and sometimes a ruined wedding is just the beginning of your own adventure.